this came from, and then how you guys got on board.
You know, the idea for this movie actually was born from a complete joke. David and I went to film school together, and in a film school nerd game we used to play was one of us would come up with a title for something, and then we try to figure out what that movie was. And on the set of All the Real Girls, it was a night shoot. David was like, "All right, the movie is Your Highness. What's it about?" I was like, "Your Highness, it's about a prince who gets stoned and fights dragons." And honestly, that was it. And then we just kind of like, we've done that a million times, and the ideas have never turned into movies where I kiss Natalie Portman. But that happened with this one.
So when you guys talked about this too, when you decided to actually make it, there was a span of time there.
Yeah, it was a bit of time. I mean, we were making low-budget indie dramas, and so everybody would have thought we were crazy if we even brought it up. But then there was a point after Danny had come out in Foot Fist Way, and and then we worked together on Pineapple Express, and so people were starting to kind of roll the dice on some of the weirder ideas we had. And so yeah, Universal was just really cool. Like Danny and Ben had sat down with him and threw the idea out, and then they'd gone away and wrote it for a while, and so yeah, they were kind of along for the ride. And I have to say, you know, in a climate where it's really tough to get any movie made, these guys were really supportive of, you know, there was never any censoring or, hey, don't do this, or you're going too far. They're always along, you know, encouraging us to push the envelope a little bit and throw the genre on its ass a little, and it was a lot of fun.
I think it's fair right now that we should all salute Universal and Major Studio for making a movie that has a visible minotaur penis in it for like 20 minutes. So thank you, Universal.
That's a landmark in cinema. There's never been a minotaur erection in any film ever.
I love the diminishing moment when those things are playing. But did you have to use a CGI one, or is that a real minotaur penis for that?
And strangely, that was like the head of the studio's idea, is to sit, because we shot a lot of the dong flapping back and forth as he's running through the labyrinth, and then his idea was like, why don't you just sit, like play that for real, like play that tension, like for tension, and then just, you know, then show full on boner when.
Thank God.
But it was a CG boner, yeah.
And also, the other thing I wanted to say, you know, besides my little salute to Universal, was that there hasn't been an evil wizard played by an American actor like so well in forever. I mean, the British actors play evil wizards a lot, but you pulled it off so well, and I wanted to give you a ton of credit. How did you become Leezar?
I had basically watched all the source material and watched all the sort of very hammy, usually very drunk English actors that are in movies like Excalibur, like the one we saw the trailer for. Remember the Merlin, that guy who sort of the completely over-serious asshole, which is always like sort of, you know, half-cocked. And so I watched a lot of that stuff and then just basically, you know, ripped it off.
Honestly, really, one of the best evil wizard performances in decades, way better than the Harry Potter evil wizards, and I'm not just kissing your ass. That is
God
legit.
bless. Thank you.
Let me share this with the crowd. Who has a question for our guests? Oh, come on, give me a break. Oh, all right.
How did you balance the sort of traditional speech of these films with the kind of swears and casual cadence of today's culture?
Well, that's one of the things we talked about early on, is that this isn't like even really Earth. I mean, there's 2 moons. It's kind of its own bizarre fantasy world, and we could pick and choose what we wanted. I mean, we could go for like kind of 14th century design, and all of a sudden the guy's wearing a powdered wig with a beauty mark, and they say things like, you don't know jack shit about the prophecy. So, you know, we just really didn't want to limit ourselves to any sort of historical merit. At the same time, we also wanted something that kind of had a contemporary feel to it. So, you know, we just kind of let it loose and didn't want to limit comedy. You know, just as I think it'd be really tricky to make like a PG comedy, because you'd have to like say, well, you can't say that in a PG movie. You know, you'd have to like have all these rules. We just wanted to throw every rule imaginable out the door, so we could try to make the movie just as fun as possible.
Who's up? You.
Has it been good going from like the low budget indie stuff that you used to do, the dramas, to these high budget wizard comedies?
Has it been good? What?
I mean, have you enjoyed that big giant process of
Yeah, you know, I like, just as probably all you guys in here like to see different kinds of movies every week and a little this and a little that. It's fun just professionally to be able to get in the ring and learn how to, like, you know, design creatures and guys in suits and puppets and bring all the kind of things that I loved watching in movies as a kid, from Dark Crystal to Yoda running around. You know, like, I just remember when those movies, or when those like behind the scene of Return of the Jedi would come on TV, and I'd just be glued, like imagining someday I get to, you know, get my hands dirty and something like that. So it really is you know, I'm into all types of movies. I'm really trying to make a horror film, and there's some indie ideas I have that, you know, would cost $5 to make, and I'd like to get those going too. So right now it's just, there's an opportunity for people to write a big budget check and make a movie as balls out as we could go on that one. So if people are willing to go for that, you know, that may be a very limited time in my life, so why not take advantage of it?
So I'm assuming for you guys too, there were points where you couldn't believe that you're able to do this thing. Like the 11-year-old in you is, I mean, clearly you were having as much fun as they were.
No, it was one of the, I came on very late in the process. They were pretty close to, or they were in pre-production, very close to shooting. And then they gave me the script, not knowing that I was a big fan of that genre as well. And I read it, and I was just the script was really tight and really good. And just like this gentleman was saying, like it really rode that line super well, because it's super easy to want to go into spoof territory. And but it stayed really good. And even stripping away all that comedy and stuff, like I thought the story was really good. Like it's it's all these characters and markers that they made along the way, and it builds, and it has this thing, so.
You know, I really just wanted to make the movie so that I could have Simon the Bird. I always wanted the owl from Clash of the Titans. Like, I just want to make a movie where I get to put that in my home somewhere. Yeah.
You have it?
And I have him. And I also have the Minotaur's dick too, so I want everything.
Make them fight. All right. Oh, in the very back there's a hand up.
Is there anything you wanted to get in that you couldn't?
There was an orgy scene at one point.
That's where they drew the line.
Yeah, that was kind of, but it was also like we didn't have enough. I mean, this was the interesting thing about this movie was they gave us a comedy budget, yet we didn't want to approach it as like a comedy. So there were limitations that just on a logistical level that we just, you know, we had a comedy budget and a comedy schedule, and yet we're trying to, you know, save the kingdom. So it got a little difficult. So we did have to limit ourselves or get creative. And it was also, it rains a lot. We shot in Northern Ireland, and so if you lost half a day, you had to like figure out how to shoot that, you know, full day in half a day. So there weren't any backup plans, and so we had to get. So I wouldn't say we got everything. We had to save some ideas for the sequel, I think. So maybe the orgy and some other stuff.
Comes out in 2 months. Okay, there's a hand right here in blue.
All right, so you mentioned that it started as a joke. How did it turn from a joke into a movie?
You know, it was just an idea that through the years, David and I kind of would always come back to and just throw other layers onto it of like, oh, and then, you know, the bad guy could be raised by 3 mothers. And then it just, I think because we had no expectations for it, it was something that creatively was very easy to kind of go back to now and then. And one day I was just in this pitch meeting, and I had pitched a few things, and they didn't dig any of them. And so finally I was like, you know what, I'm just going to pitch fucking Your Highness. I've talked about that enough. And we pitched it, and they were interested in it. So, you know, and then it was the exciting thing of being able to try to like really flesh out this idea that had just been floating around at that point for, you know, like 6 or 7 years.
Oh, there's a really high hand there in the third row from the back.
Will the sitter have this much minotaur dick in it?
No, we've just tried to minimize that for that. There's too many children in that film.
Were James Franco and Natalie Portman your first choices for the roles, or did you have to downscale?
Y'all hear that?
They were indeed our first choices. It was pretty fun how this movie came together, and the people we knew and we wanted to be a part of the movie we got to work with. So it makes a job that is so logistically demanding. Could be stressful, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself when you're in production. But it's great to have good friends and great people there that aren't going to be, you know, like James is just an interesting guy. He never leaves set. Like he doesn't go to his trailer. He just sits there and reads books until you're ready for him. And tap him on the shoulder and jumps right into character. And I mean, Natalie's the same way. There's nothing she won't do. I mean, it's just fun to work with people that are that excited to be going to work and being crazy.
I had a quick question actually. I don't know where it came from, but a lot of the stuff is obviously based on like folklore and mythology. But what's the story of the no penis on
You just can't trust a man without a penis. You know, it's a sign that there is weird shit at play there.
I agree. You there?
So what's going through your mind as you watch it right now? Like, were y'all laughing along with us, or were y'all thinking, or what?
I cry every time I watch the film, just constantly, just crying.
Like it still makes. I mean, you know what? I laugh watching it, just being like, I can't believe that we actually got it to this point where we're sitting here with you guys watching this movie. So I laugh at it just out of the novelty that it exists.
All right. There's another, I just saw another hand go up. There it is.
What kind of lizard was that? Stevie, what was he, like a Gila monster or something?
Steven was it was a specific type of Gila monster he was, but he was a.
He was the best kind of lizard, right?
I forget what breed he was. Well, we tried to get a Komodo dragon, and
Yeah. Initially, that was a wildcat. It was going to be
Yeah.
a bobcat that was just in there fucking us up inside the carriage. But I pushed out. I was like, just get a lizard that will just sit there.
So was it still alive in that final shot?
yeah, it was.
I have a question, but as a fan of like sword and sorcery, I will have to give you guys props for making a final climactic spell called the fuck me.
That was Justin's idea.
Yeah, that was Justin's idea.
You should write movies, dude.
Try.
Oh, right there towards the back.
What were the first and last scenes that you actually shot?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
I was the last.
You were
wasn't I the last scene? I think, because you all fuckers went
No,
home.
the last scene was the very first scene. Everybody went home and left me there with that beautiful
yeah,
maiden
right.
at the beginning.
I left you, sorry.
The very first scene was when we talked to Isabel the first time after the little snake hand battle. That was the first thing we shot.
The first thing we shot was the dick in the face.
Second day.
Is that-
We walked up to it. We were in the woods the first day.
No, Andy, Moan.
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
When?
It was a blur. A joyous blur.
We saved up for the dick in the hand to Natalie. That was second. I felt uncomfortable about putting that in her face so early in the shoot. Yeah.
Second day.
All right, these lights are wild. Oh, there's one in the back there.
Was that really Belladonna singing?
Bella, was that really Zooey Deschanel singing?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
That was really James Franco singing.
But that's an interesting thing too, because there was another. We had a musical sequence in the movie that when we were talking earlier about the kind of balance of what, like, one thing we did film that ended up feeling a little bit more like a Saturday Night Live sketch. I mean, it's very funny, but it felt like a different kind of funny. Is like James singing part of a song on the quest and her up in the tower singing "Longing for Her Prince" to rescue her, and it actually is good. We'll put it on the DVD, but it was like one of those things where when he put it in the whole movie, and one of the values of like a test screening process, you know, you see it in front of an audience, you're like, all of a sudden we're in like a sketch here, and so that was one of those things that you kind of had to, you know, drown a darling. And
It was a pretty good song though. It's called "Fuck These Shitty Moons" was the name of the song.
All right, this hand right there on this side.
Was there a particular scene where you guys were just cracking up so many times you had to do so many takes
Every
over
scene.
and over?
yeah, the scene in the bar, the horse piss with Danny and Natalie, I remember neither of them. That was the only time I ever got mad because we couldn't do anything because they wouldn't shut up.
Well, David just asked. David will direct right off camera and just throw the crazy shit at you, and just, you know, you just kind of have to not even think about it and just spit it back out. And we were just doing the scene, and I was behaving, and then David's like, "Call her a bully and a whore," and I just kind of went with it. And as soon as the words kind of came out of my mouth, and I was looking at Natalie, I was like, "Oh, David, this is terrible. I have to call Natalie Portman a whore."
So you got mad?
Well, you know, like it was like one of those things where like everybody just gets the giggle fits, and then I'm just like trying to make a funny movie but keep a straight face. I don't know. I guess the demands of a director.
You seem like such a hostile dude that I was just a little freaked out.
I'll rage, dude. I'll get crazy.
You had your hand up a second ago?
Yeah, did Danny do most of his stunting?
Are you your
My stunting growth. I did a fair amount of it. David likes to make me hurt myself, and
I think the only thing.
I didn't jump on that horse.
Yeah, he didn't jump from the carriage to the horse. But, you know, it's pretty, I mean, a testament to the actors. And, you know, we really wanted, for the carriage chase sequence, I really wanted it, like, there's a difference between, like, an early Indiana Jones movie and a later Indiana Jones movies in terms of chases. And I wanted it to be more modeled after an early one, where this actor's doing stunts and it's not green screen. So there's no green screen on that. It's just literally, it's Danny and Rasmus. I mean, there's no harnesses. They're climbing out of a blazing fast carriage, climbing out the window and up and onto it. And a lot of actors won't do that these days, and a lot of, you know, insurance policies won't allow you to do that these days. But.
Did Holden